Welcome to our latest episode of BorakBursa, where we talk about anything financial. Today I have Wei Chi here. He's a COO of Tokenize Malaysia, one of the 4 or 5 crypto exchanges in Malaysia. So we'll be talking about crypto obviously today as well. And I have Mr. Chuck here, who is representing the ordinary guy. All right, let's begin.
All right, Wei Chi, you want to tell us a little bit more about Tokenize for our audience that maybe doesn't know about it right now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, we are a regulated platform for customers around Malaysia to trade digital assets, crypto, more commonly known. So, in Malaysia, it's more known as digital assets. That's the legal definition of crypto, right? So, there are 6 platforms approved right now, 4 operating. Yeah. But since inception at 2020, we were among the first 3 platforms that got approved by the Securities Commission of Malaysia to allow crypto trading. And a couple of years later, we were also invested in by Kenanga Investment Bank. So this is to assist us to grow, expand the market, expand it towards the more sophisticated investors, tapping into their mass affluent customer base as well. All right, so that's pretty much Tokenize.
Right. Maybe I can just start by asking a few questions about like what's the crypto scene like in Malaysia for investors, right? Right. Do you see like it's mainly young people or old people or your average working stiff, or you're talking about like really T10 rich people investing in crypto? Like what's the audience like right now?
Right. I think for most parts, referring to our customer base, right, a big part of them are actually, I would say, the mass market, right, for most parts. We've got people who are very aspiring, which is why they're taking the risk to invest in crypto because of the exponentially larger returns potentially, right? So these people have a bit of income, mostly working professionals. Some of them are from also suburban areas. I wouldn't say they are like city urban professionals, but they do have stable income and they are going to invest anyway into any other alternative assets. So I think they've picked crypto. We've not seen, say, people who are in the T1, T2 coming into the crypto platforms publicly. So no data to suggest that they're heavy into crypto or not, right? But I think a big part of our customer base are people from KL, people from Penang, people from Sabah and Sarawak even, right? So it's a good mix of age group as well. I think onset is definitely around 20-something, but we are also seeing an increasing amount of investors that are aged, say, 50 and above, who are starting to believe that, I could perhaps invest in this, even if it's not for me to realize my returns now, this could be an inheritance type of asset someday. Yeah.
Do you feel that the higher the price, the more convinced they are?
I think that goes for pretty much most asset classes, right? You only come in once it's high and you think that, enough people want in, right? How can they be wrong? And then once you go in, then you suffer a correction.
I mean, did you feel that kind of volume like in the last cycle, the 69, not the most recent one, but the before the...
Yeah, look, I think I've been in crypto since 2016 when I actively started looking into it, operating within a business involving crypto. Prices has gone up each cycle, right? And of course, with each cycle, the price goes up. It validates the fact that Bitcoin particularly is not just a short-term trend anymore. But if we look at near-term, of course, people are more attracted to it once the prices starts going up, surging up. We are seeing a slight increase in demand, but nowhere near as close as to 2020 or even 2018 just yet in terms of trading volume.
Yeah.
So FOMO is real, lah.
Yeah. But is it strange, like when Wei Chi mentioned about the slightly older investors coming in, right? Because we had a crypto event last week. I know why you're laughing now already. I can't share you guys a photo, but essentially, we found an 85-year-old woman coming to our crypto fund launch.
And she sat through the whole 2.5-hour presentation.
Riveted by Alvin's presentation. I mean, everyone was riveted, but we were particularly impressed that she was riveted by this presentation, talking about trends, talking about how it's an adoption play and all these kind of things. And she was like eyes open, listening intently the whole time. I was so impressed, man. Yeah. So impressed. We can't show you that photo, sorry. The PDP and all that. But actually, I wanted to ask you guys about this because we had a fairly big crypto event recently, the halving. And we did talk about it on our last show. And I think a lot of people were expecting crypto prices to like kind of like boom, skyrocket. Yeah, it's 2020 all over again. That didn't happen. So kind of wanted to ask you guys like what were your expectations going into the halving, and where do you think that these gains that people have anticipated, are they coming or are they not going to come at all?
I think based on, so my expectation was that it was going to come down after halving.
Oh,
Why? Not after the fact, but if you look at the last two halvings, typically you actually see it that in anticipation of a halving, it'll go up, and then after the halving, when this kind of goes quiet, it actually always trends down, right? So the last two halvings that has happened, of course, this halving, what was a little bit unexpected. So if history was anything to go by, it should have gone down, and that's what's happened today.
it shouldn't have gone down.
It should have.
It should have
Gone down.
Okay.
Right? And it's happening right today.
Yeah.
But because the last two cycles, kind of the mass market has not really come in. You didn't have 11 ETFs approved in the US for Bitcoin only. We're talking about Bitcoin only.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that Hong Kong recent announcement where ETH and Bitcoin is also an approved ETF.
Yeah.
So we didn't have this kind of floodgates of traditional money or accessibility to Bitcoin back then. So that was kind of the question mark. But it seems like, again, it's repeated that same kind of pattern again.
So just to kind of encapsulate what you mentioned just now, so basically you're saying that you kind of expected it to go down just like they went down after the last two halvings.
Correct.
But because of the mass interest now, maybe this time there was a suspicion that it might be different.
Yeah. Maybe it might hover a little bit stronger, and we might not get that 10-20% dip.
Right. And Weiqi, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think I hold similar sentiments. I think if we look at historically, been through the past two Bitcoin boom cycle. So particularly before each boom cycle, it's very quiet. It's almost like a dead town. Markets is sideways, no volume, and then of course.
I imagine like a cowboy, and then there's like tumbleweed.
Exactly,
right.
Exactly. And then of course, suddenly, the harbinger of news comes in and say, oh, Bitcoin halving is soon, and then rumors start swirling, and ETFs are coming in and all that. So I think that was very much well timed. I think that brought back the people who are on the fence about crypto, who's just been observing, who's got probably holdings, they've already been in crypto, so they started buying in more, sentiment starts picking up, but nowhere near as close to 2020 where the peak is, right? But now, as what they say, by...
What year was the last halving in?
2020.
2020, yes.
Okay.
During COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember during COVID.
Right, just after the COVID big news spread out.
And then how long did it dip for before it picked up again?
I think it dipped throughout 4 or 5 months, 3 months typically throughout the summer.
So you think the same thing's going to happen? It's going to dip for 3 months and it's going to go through the roof again, or?
Don't know. I can't predict prices.
Yeah,
In the
can't
short
predict.
Okay.
But I think sentiments-wise is something that we can observe. Sentiment-wise, crypto is still doing fine. I mean, it's resurging back.
Yep.
Right, there are more and more events about crypto. People are talking about it right now.
Yep.
So I think we haven't seen the peak of this news yet, right?
Let's talk about that rolling conversation. So the sentiment for crypto, I think in 2020 is huge for more, right? Because like some of the prices were going like 200-300x or whatever it is, and then people were thinking like maybe I should think about buying into it. And then we had the whole FTX thing, obviously, and then that kind of like caused the sentiment to go down. And then we had this surge of crypto scams, which is still ongoing, obviously, because scams are always ongoing.
Correct.
And do you guys get this question from people like in Malaysia saying like, hey, crypto, isn't it a scam and blah, 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 that kind of thing? Or is that like kind of tapering off nowadays already?
I think it's tapering off, to be honest, if we're going to observe over the past few years worth of conversation. In the early 2020s or even 2018, people were always saying crypto is a scam, because post-ICO bubble and all that. And then, of course, FTX and all that. But more and more people are now knowledgeable enough to distinguish between what is the scammy part about crypto and which is the fundamental part, like Bitcoin, which have always been in existence, and Bitcoin does not scam anyone, right? There's people who use Bitcoin to scam others, right? So I think people are starting to differentiate that more than ever right now.
Right. And if I understand it, the exchanges that are approved within Malaysia also are allowed to only trade in certain types of crypto, is that right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. And that kind of filters out a lot of the more scammy aspects of crypto trading?
Probably the more vulnerable type of cryptos.
Yeah.
Those are not exposed here in Malaysia.
Yeah.
I think what's been listed in Malaysia have generally been the strongest ones.
Vulnerable, not scammy, sorry.
Politically correct.
Yeah, vulnerable.
I think also from our side, as a fund management company, right? I guess the most common question we get asked is crypto like legal in Malaysia? Seriously, right? So and you know, we always have this handy on us. We have the Capital Markets Services Act, right, which was actually updated with the ordinance in 2019 by our finance minister back then, YB Lim Guan Eng.
Yeah, Lim Guan Eng, yeah.
Yeah, where he actually, so at that point, if you can remember, crypto was always, is it the central bank as a regulator, or is it the Securities Commission as the regulator, right? And I think at that point they decided that it was treated as a security, so it falls under CMSA. So for those out there watching this, yes, it's legal since 2019.
Yeah.
Just in case, that's almost 5 years ago, no?
Yeah.
We still get asked that question, right?
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, Bitcoin is legal. Is plugging that in.
Okay, it's legal, guys. It's not scammy. Okay, so next topic. I saw this as well. Hong Kong to launch spot Bitcoin ETF next week, highlighting contrast with crypto ban in mainland China. So there's a lot of stuff here that maybe the layman doesn't really quite understand. Like for me also, like there's a lot to absorb here. Okay, so spot Bitcoin ETF. Let's talk about what a spot Bitcoin ETF is. Maybe you can describe it in a way that most people will understand.
Well, I mean, it's like instead of buying Bitcoin directly, right? You're investing in a company, a fund that buys up Bitcoin and trades Bitcoin, right, publicly, and like you're allowed to invest in a company that manages your Bitcoin for you. I think in short, does that work?
Yep. So in a sense that like, because I've bought crypto before, and it wasn't a pleasurable experience. I mean, you got to set up your MetaMask.
Correct. Yes.
You got to get your passphrase. You got to write it down somewhere. You got to fold it up and label it and make sure that you don't lose it or whatever.
Your seed phrases.
Yeah. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you need to do that is quite technical that the average person might not get.
Correct.
So that's why something like this would assumedly open it up to retail investors.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
I think it opens up to both retail, and corporate, institutional as well.
Yeah.
If they wanted to add Bitcoin, say, to their balance sheet or to their fund, you're right. Managing it, and because the Bitcoin is decentralized, so which means that it's self-custody. So it's not like a bank where you put money in a bank. If something happens to the bank, you're still guaranteed that amount. No one's going to guarantee. There's no helpline you can call. There's no Bitcoin helpline and say, hey, you know what, I accidentally transferred one Bitcoin to someone else. That doesn't work. So it's all self-custody, and you're right. So you have to be quite technical, right? But it kind of opens up, if you think of the exchange having all these participants, suddenly, it's just another ticker, it's just another stock that you can just buy, right? So it's
I'm actually curious, like with these ETFs, right? Are you seeing a majority is purchased by retail investors or by institutional investors?
Wow, I don't have that data, to be honest, but we can see the fund flow coming in pretty strong in the US. I think just started trading yesterday, I think.
Oh wow,
2 days ago.
Am I that recent? 25th April?
29th, I think. 29th, 30th, I think it will start trading.
Do you know anything about this, whether it's more of institutional or retail investors?
Right, I think we don't have that data, but I think when it comes to products like ETFs, I think it generally attracts the more sophisticated audience, investors. Particularly, I think what's unique is that most retail people would just want to self-custody their own Bitcoin, right? I think it's
if they're under 40,
it's lower cost.
Yeah.
Unless it's a very large fund, very large capital, typically, the size of an entity's fund, right? And it would go for ETF also because one thing about mandate, right? Sometimes corporates don't have direct mandates to directly invest in the spot asset itself. But they could choose to invest in an ETF just for that exposure. So I think ETFs serves entities better in many sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I think maybe just to explain spot. Spot means actually buying that native coin. Versus futures, which was...
So, okay. What about the crypto ban in mainland China? So, I assume that this doesn't mean that the majority of people in mainland China have not been buying crypto this entire time. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the majority of mining centers were based in China as well.
Yeah.
How does that work with...
Were.
This ban was since when?
I think 2019, 2020 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no, they banned, actually, you go back, China's banned Bitcoin about 13 times. No, for real, right?
Just for good luck.
Yeah, just for good luck. No, maybe
Yeah,
14,
yeah.
15, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 14 is unlucky. now, but-
14 even worse. Yeah.
So I
Just
think this ban is not new. Like they keep coming out saying that we're banning it. Yeah, because if you kind of understand crypto or Bitcoin specifically, because it's decentralized, there's no website you can ban. So
Yeah.
it's
hard to enforce, eh?
yeah, it's hard to enforce. Although you can say I ban you, like don't do this, but it's hard, right? Because everything's on the open blockchain.
But
right?
the Great Firewall of China can't do it.
no,
Oh.
no.
But they don't have like exchanges and stuff like that, so people still have to go to like your MetaMask. Can't they just
Right.
block the MetaMask?
Well, if you think of Bitcoin, if
Yeah.
you look at the first line on the white paper, it's a peer-to-peer
Yeah.
e-cash system, right? So you don't. Sorry, Vijay, but I mean you can just exchange Bitcoin like you don't need an exchange.
exactly.
it's not easy, but you can.
yeah,
It
correct.
comes
Yeah.
with risk.
Yeah, it
of
comes with
course.
risk.
Yeah.
So
Can you talk about a bit about the risk? Like,
I mean, sure. I mean, if you're dealing with a counterparty, face to face with a person that you don't know, even in China, you run into the risk of being scammed, right? For
Yeah.
example, I think that's number one, right? What if the other party doesn't honor the payment? You've sent your Bitcoin to him, and there's no recourse, right? There's no reverse button, right, or refund button for such transactions. So of course, exchanges come into place, right? We're the intermediaries, but yeah, you could actually technically send money anywhere around the world instantly, right, without seeing that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. And actually, with the so this ban for 13 times, not 14, 13 times, right? Why did it keep banning it and banning it and banning it? Like,
I mean, if it was effective the first time, like I said, you can't. There's no specific domain name that you can ban, like Google or WhatsApp or whatever in China, right? Because it's not a company. Bitcoin is not a company, right?
But Hong Kong is part of mainland of China now, and they just launched a spot Bitcoin ETF.
What's a special administrative region, right?
Ooh. Okay, probably not the topic that we want to discuss today. Anyway, moving on. Okay, let's talk about a very, very hot topic for Malaysians in the last 1 month, which is that EPF now allows for an account tree. Basically, EPF had account 1 and account 2. Account 1 is the one you're not supposed to touch. Account 2 you can touch for very, very special purposes like building a house or getting married or whatever. And now they have an account tree, and an account tree is withdrawable any time, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
What was your gut reaction as an individual when you heard about this?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, of course, when I read the headlines, it seemed controversial. Knowing that the biggest, segment of our country, right? They have insufficient savings in EPF even, and now this is introduced, right, where they can withdraw. And again, then the country's population is probably at risk of making the wrong financial decision, right, withdrawing out their funds too early and all that. But it's also a catch-22, right, because some of these people, they do drastically need money, and taking out from the EPF is probably better than taking out money from a loan
shark.
Yeah, but as you dive deeper a little bit, I noticed that the mandatory savings account is at 75%, which has increased from 70 to 75%. So with that, if Malaysians are again fully employed and all that, they tend to actually save much for the longer term, right? Because it's 70 to 75%. It is just, of course, in the near term, the short term, if they take out the money and expense it in not the most prudent way, then of course these people are going to run into the same risks again, facing the same challenges of having shortage of cash flow and all that.
Then account 2 basically gets squeezed on both sides, really.
Account two.
I didn't know that account 1 actually grew a bit by 5%. You said, right?
It grew.
So then account 3 eats into account 2, and then account 1 also eats into account 2. So account 2 left with how much now? 10%.
15, I think.
15.
Yeah,
Right. So what was your personal reaction?
Look, I think I thought it was a positive move. I am very pro deregulation. So if you look at what's kind of going on, this move basically deregulates to say that, look, it's your savings. You decide what you're going to do with it. You can spend it, you can invest it, it's up to you, right? Of course, like what Weiqi said, the majority might just spend it. Which if you kind of think about it, in the short term, is positive for the economy in the short term. I think it's an open secret. The last couple of years, since US went from 0 to 5.5%, kind of the world kind of just, a bit choked in terms of liquidity, right?
Yeah.
So I think domestically, retail, we are feeling it, right? There's less spending power, and of course, inflation has put costs up as well.
Yeah.
Even though I think Malaysia has managed inflation fairly well. So I think it's really giving freedom of choice to the people, and what you want to do it. So I think in the short term, positive. I think even in the longer term, like what Richie said, they actually moved from 70 to 75. So it's a larger portion that you actually cannot touch. And I think it will give a kind of a stimulus lah.
Okay.
Domestically, if you ask
But
me.
we've had a few of these stimuluses before, lah. So
during COVID.
yeah.
Okay, but I think it's different from COVID. My view, because if you look at growth of an economy, one equation is money supply multiplied by velocity of money. Now, what happened to COVID was velocity of money slowed down dramatically. Why? Because we just can't go out. We can't makan. We can't meet friends. There's no
Reason to
activities.
spend.
Yeah. So you increase money supply without velocity, you're not gonna get growth, right? So back then, I think the EPF withdrawals, I think, amounted to about 140 billion, quite significant.
Yeah.
I believe this round, some of the estimates is about 25 billion.
Right.
But this time there's a lot more because everything's opened back up, things are moving again. So I think there will be a positive impact. I don't think it'll be negative.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Fair enough.
Economically, I think there will be more spending and all that.
Yeah.
It's just, of course, some people are just going to be losing it, unfortunately, through bad investments or random purchases.
And the power of compounding interest, lah. I mean,
Correct. Yeah.
Every time I feel sad about my life, I look into my EPF account and I feel a little bit better, lah. Yeah.
But it's a good move, right, for the country, because I think with such power, then hopefully the society gets more understanding in terms of financial literacy, how to save their money better and all that.
So this is the next piece of news that actually got me quite confused because I was like, didn't AirAsia list like a really, really long time ago? Then how come they are listing again one?
Taking over the listing, yeah, correct. So if you look at the sub headlines, you see AirAsia Group is poised to be listed on BURSA Malaysia in September, taking over the listing of AirAsia X Berhad.
Wow, you just did an eye test because I can't read that right now, man.
Yeah.
Nice.
So actually, it's not really a new listing. So if you remember, AirAsia got listed in 2004.
Right.
And back then, it was only AirAsia. AirAsia X never existed. Very quick history. So AirAsia's business model is very simple. Point-to-point travel, anywhere less than 4 hours, right? No transit, nothing. They don't do that. Of course, self-serve. Previously, when they started, it was through agents and all. They did it B2C. You do it online. Everybody can fly.
Yeah.
So AirAsia was listed first as obviously a low-cost airline, right? And that worked well for them. And then, of course, all the way till before COVID, right? Okay. And then what happened in between that, AirAsia X was listed. So it's an offshoot, right? So AirAsia, back then, AirAsia Berhad actually owned 20% of AirAsia X. Now, AirAsia X business model is anywhere beyond 4 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, there were a lot of analysts that kind of questioned AirAsia X. Does their business model work? Because you only have 24 hours a day, you fly 8 hours, really, there's only 1, 2, 3, and that's non-stop flying, right? Whereas AirAsia's model is, they got 188 seats for one Airbus A320, and you can, if you do 2-hour flights a day, literally one seat, you can sell it 8 times.
Yeah.
Right, hypothetically. So of course, we know now what happened to AirAsia X. I think even in the best years, I think it barely made a profit.
Yeah.
Of course, post-COVID, we know what happened during COVID. Not fault their own, but really kind of came to a natural order. So what happened was also that time, AirAsia itself renamed itself as Capital A because during COVID you couldn't fly planes. So what should we do? Oh, let's create a super app, right? They bought
And AA was already taken, lah. So
Right. So what they did was then they bought GoJet's Indonesia outside of Indonesia's business to start their super app, and I think you guys can see the AirAsia Move app and things like that. So kind of those apps and those new super apps were loss making, obviously, and now with COVID over and airlines coming back together, really as an investor, if I'm investing in a capital A, what if I don't like the app business? I only want to invest in the airline business, right? So naturally, what they're doing is injecting the AirAsia business into AirAsia X because I think it was close to being delisted PN17. So that's it. It's kind of just separating like an alphabet.
So TLDR, AirAsia X becomes the new AirAsia, kind of.
Well, it becomes the old AirAsia.
The old AirAsia.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's just a group of airlines.
Right.
There. Yeah, and then you have Capital A, of course, which has diversified interest in digital and all that.
Yeah. So Capital A is kind of like the Grab of whatever. Is it like a holdings thing? Like does
Yeah,
like,
it's an investment holding company.
it's an holding company.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think so.
Yep.
Wow, that was confusing. Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Okay, let's move on. So, I think we've spoken a bit about this, like how I think Alvin, you've spoken like saying that the Malaysian market is undervalued and that this year is going to be a good year for it. And you told me not to look at this kind of news last time because you say it happens all the time, right? But this rally apparently lasted quite a long time. Do you think that we're in the beginnings of a resurgence in the Malaysian stock market?
I hope so. So if you look at the Malaysian market, we've actually largely been ignored by the international community. You can see that foreign fund flows from BURSA Malaysia has been negative continuously since 2016, 2017, non-stop. Net. Of course, some certain months are positive, but net they're out, right? And because we've had we had 5 prime ministers in the last 6 years.
Oh, was it 5? I thought it was 5.
5. So we
Yeah,
had
5.
5 prime ministers in the last 6 years.
God damn.
So it doesn't bode very well for foreign investor confidence, right? So I think hopefully the worst is over and moving forward. So we've been extremely laggard. So not per se that we're having a bull run, right?
Yep.
But there's a lot of catching up to do. So if we can get our house in order, there's a lot of catching up to global equity markets, right? So in the same period, I think since 2018, all world index it's up, I think 60%. We're probably up 2 or 3%.
Right.
So huge laggard. So I talk about global equity markets, right? Not just Malaysia. So so we're a big laggard.
So market correction would be like 57% based on that.
So that's why even as a market correction doesn't really move because Malaysia's already down, right?
Yeah.
So there's not much correction. So because we kind of almost hit that plateau,
Yeah.
seems like there's only one way up, lah.
Yeah.
But Alvin, what kind of local headlines do you envisage that can drive this rally further? What would be the ideal scenario?
I think there's been a lot of headlines, to be honest, from the Johor Free Trade Zone to today. Microsoft just announced some major investment, 10 billion or something in the next 10 years. Last year was Tesla coming in. So I think there's, because these big boys are coming in, they're like, okay, we're confident. So hopefully the medium to smaller guys have a bit more increase in confidence.
Yep, the effects leak out through the supply chain.
Yeah.
Same views?
Yeah, same views actually. Right.
So you also kind of have the opinion that our market has been undervalued for quite some time now.
I wouldn't be an expert in valuation, but I think just by virtue of having invested in across a few asset classes, I think market should rebound after a period of just low, dreaded volumes, down there it's quite depressed action, but I think generally there's chance for it to go up again because it seems like we're having more positive news, not as much negative sentiments anymore in the short term. So I think we should see a rebound still, a reversal to mean at least.
So speaking of that, and obviously like on this is the 4th episode of this podcast now, and we've never plugged our product yet. So Alvin, I wanted to give you an opportunity to plug your product. So if you guys didn't know, basically this podcast is run by a company called EquitiesTracker, which Alvin is the CEO of, and they launched a fund last year called the Snowball Fund.
Yeah.
That basically invests in Malaysian equities.
Yes.
And you sent me this.
Yes.
You want to explain what's going on here?
Oh, that's as of April, right? So actually now it's even higher. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Wow.
So we I think August was almost like, I would say, the bottom of the Malaysian market already, right? So we kind of built a nice portfolio of 8 to 10 stocks, which we picked the 10 stocks that we think are the most undervalued on BURSA Malaysia. We didn't really have a specific theme like a sector or anything, but as long as they were undervalued, that's where we were at. And because at EquitiesTracker, we track all 1,000 companies in Malaysia. So we thought we picked the 10 best undervalued stocks that we had. And of course, I think since August, it's been 8, maybe coming to 9 months since we're doing this podcast. I think on average, our return was about 19% in that time. So yeah, so we're quite pleased with the results. Our customers are quite elated because last year, to kind of tell them to say, hey, you know what, we think the Malaysian market has kind of bottomed out, and we don't have a crystal ball, but things are cheap.
Yeah.
And then 8 months later to come and show them that things are turning around. I think everyone's pretty positive.
So based on this, you're seeing the signs and you're positive for the future of this market right now.
We are pretty positive because stocks are kind of 6 months forward to real business, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing quite a lot of positive sentiment, but I think what Richard was saying, people are not really convinced. Typically, retail investors, because you don't hear anyone talk about Malaysian stocks now.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, go and buy US stocks, right? But for us, we are asset agnostic. We don't really care which market, but if it's good value, we will buy it, right? So right now Malaysia is, like I said, it's major laggard. So I think we're still very early stages.
Just a general advice, I think, to most investors is that by the time you're absolutely convinced, it's generally too late already.
Yes. That's why.
Confirm is going up because it's gone up already. Yeah, now is the time to... No, it's not. It's not the time to buy. Yeah.
Very scary, very low now.
Yeah.
So, kudos to the investors who opened an account with us last year, because that was probably one of the most kind of depressing times, like, does Malaysia have a future kind of thing, right? That was last year, yeah.
et-invest.com. I'll put the link up, down in the screen somewhere here, I guess. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about another interesting piece of news that I saw, which is that BURSA Malaysia rules out crypto in its multi-asset exchange platform. So again, lots of stuff here that the layman is going to look at and go like, huh? Okay, so first of all, what is this multi-asset exchange platform thing going on with BURSA?
I think it's a very common term, people in the investment wealth space we use, right? Multi-assets, right? Simply because there's just a lot of categories when it comes to assets.
Okay.
Right? Securities, you have equities, you have debt. People can also invest in gold, which rightly they are in that space right now, BURSA. Many other things that one can invest in. So these are all different type of assets. So BURSA, I think, coming from its very legacy heritage, is mostly just equities and debt. Now they are also offering the chance, for investors to invest in gold through them. But of course, they said no crypto, which thank God for me. Thank God, it's great news.
I just understood that.
Yeah. Thank God nobody's coming after our lunch yet.
Thanks, BURSA.
As a company like Tokenize, we are also regulated by the SC, and we definitely respect BURSA's position in Malaysia as the only stock exchange. Right? They are, of course, the de facto market leader in exchanges, right? Trading securities. But for us, I guess them not entering into crypto bodes a very healthy business sign for us, meaning that we don't have a big competitor coming in, right? In this very growing sector still in Malaysia, people are still trying to learn more about crypto, still having confidence, and if BURSA offers it, then the likelihood that everyone rushes there to BURSA. Whereas in Malaysia, we already have potentially up to 6 different competitors, and we cannot afford to have a big competition like that.
Okay, so let me just try to wrap my head around this, because earlier we talked about ETFs and all that, right? So offering crypto on its exchange platform is not the same as just selling a spot Bitcoin ETF or whatever. This is like actual. I can buy a Bitcoin on not an ETF but an actual Bitcoin on the exchange. Is that?
Well, I think Bursa didn't specify whether the exchange will it be a spot Bitcoin or a Bitcoin ETF type of product on Bursa. So, but again, I think based on what we're seeing, the stance is that just no crypto entirely.
Yeah. So even like those stock markets in the world that are offering ETFs, they would basically mean that it will be a competitor to someone like you?
Well, not really, because if say in Hong Kong, for example, right, they're offering Bitcoin ETFs now. They're not directly competitors because we are just offering Bitcoin trading against Malaysian ringgit, right? So you convert your Malaysian ringgit to Bitcoin Ether through us. But if you want to invest in a ETF in Hong Kong, you probably need Hong Kong dollars. Or they probably accept Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies as well. It's traded against that.
Yeah.
So they're not direct competitors. And if it's in Malaysia, if Bursa launched this, it would most likely be Bitcoin against the ringgit, right? So investors would have more options, right?
Yeah. Alvin, any thoughts on this or?
I think I think they just it's a good vision to have, to be multi-asset and kind of aligns everybody to what they want, because I think they do gold futures now, palm oil index futures, so derivatives, equities of course, which is the big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you will always bring this up. It's like, yeah, but how is that different from all the fiats out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, so an interesting comment here is, right, our purpose is to help companies raise capital, expand, employ people, and make profit, right? And crypto does not do that. Actually, I beg to differ.
Yeah.
There are a lot of crypto companies that issue tokens to raise money. They hire people, they expand, and they do make a profit. In fact, if you compare this against crypto, I might as well use that for gold as well, right? Gold doesn't help your company expand capital, doesn't expand, doesn't employ people, right?
Gold miners.
Yeah. But buying gold itself, right? So so does crypto though.
Yeah.
Right? So
wedding ring industry.
It's like I don't know, maybe
interesting.
Bitcoin doesn't help with anything. But Bitcoin, again, right, it's just probably a comparison.
Bitcoin still does. So I'm gonna. So there are a lot of listed Bitcoin miners.
Correct.
That employ people.
Correct.
And the energy they use or the materials that they use employ people to make the machines and sustain it and maintain it, right? And cooling and so on and so forth. So they do make profits.
Also controversially, this is something that I know about personally, because I do work in NGO circles and stuff like that. So there's this whole stateless community that when you're stateless, you don't have identification, you can't have a bank account and stuff like that. So a lot of them actually get work and get paid in crypto, which doesn't require a lot of this stuff, and that allows them a pathway by which to earn money and to spend it. So it does.
Correct, which is kind of the ethos of like internet money or Bitcoin, right? It's a peer-to-peer kind of e-cash system that helps the unbanked being banked, right?
Yeah. So I do think it does have some value for sure.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have a job without Bitcoin.
There you go, sis. You see, create employment.
The employment's right here. Yeah. Okay, so this episode is being filmed just slightly after Raya. In fact, now, I mean, I'm sure our Muslim friends are still celebrating Raya. But we had a post on the first day of Raya. We thought like, okay, it's Raya, and generally traffic wouldn't be great. But this is actually one of the most far-reaching posts that we've had on our TikTok platform at Alvin Equities. And it was about comparing the price of McDonald's and a few other fast foods and other foods from 10 years ago until now. And quite frankly, even I'm shocked when I see this. I forgot that value meals used to be $6 and then now they're like $12 or $13. And this was not long ago, right?
Are they now $12, $13?
Yeah, you don't look like someone that eats McDonald's lah. So, I mean, I do. So
I skip lunches straight away.
Oh wow, nice. So actually, because we talked about this enough, but I went to the comment section and some really interesting stuff there. So one of the most responded posts was about salary stagnation. So I wanted to ask you guys, like, do you guys feel that this is a thing in Malaysia where there's an issue with rising costs and stagnating salaries?
I think like most emerging markets, a bit of this issue.
Are we still an emerging market?
We are technically.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
How long have we been emerging already? Like
Still emerging.
Some parts emerged. KL probably emerged.
this part, yeah. But in terms of the salary stagnation, do you have any thoughts on that? Like,
You know, this has always been like kind of a debate, right? So if you look at Southeast Asia, if you have like a X and Y axis, right?
Yeah.
Of say, Y axis being the minimum wage, right? Minimum wage in this region, lah. Okay, so we are kind of one of the lowest, lah. Minimum wage before they keep revising the minimum wage, right? And then if you look at our GDP per capita, which represents GDP divided by a number of Malaysians there are, right? So kind of standard you compare. We are actually kind of right here on that scale. So which is weird, we have a very high GDP per capita, but we have very low minimum wages. Yes.
do we have that high a GDP per capita?
Yeah, I think our GDP per capita is 14,000 USD.
Okay.
Number 2 in South Asia.
Yeah, it's quite high.
Next to
Yeah.
Singapore.
I think probably. I'm not so sure.
Yes,
But
after Singapore, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So which is weird, right? Where you have a country with low minimum wages and very high GDP per capita, right?
But you would look at Gini coefficient for that as well, lah. For
You-
those who don't know, Gini coefficient is about wealth inequality, lah. So is this GDP per capita taking in some very hyper rich people in that?
No, so we kind of So actually, we kind of I asked an economist. I said, how do I
Yeah.
interpret this? It's so weird, right? He said, yes, we have a high wealth inequality, because which means that this country is, you can say, most of the wealth goes to entrepreneurship rather than a wage earner. Yeah, so that's why that is that gap, right? And which means that actually Malaysians are all quite entrepreneurial, so that there is definitely that gap, right? So stagnation, yes, right? But we just can't keep increasing minimum wage because wages should move up, should be based on productivity. You shouldn't say like, I'm doing the same job, but now just pay me more. That doesn't work in the long run, if that makes sense, right? So, and it kind of like say Singapore, for example, we are quite dependent on foreign labor, right?
Yep.
And really, when you kind of push this minimum wage upwards, really it's about bulk of the foreign workers that will benefit from this.
Right.
Yeah.
Not regular,
Which
like,
then gets
citizens.
it then gets exported. Capital gets exported out again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the second really popular comment, you've got 56 replies here, right? Is it inflation or just companies raising prices every year because of greed? So, I mean, this is a very common, I think, kind of a thought among, middle class, lower class Malaysians that, it's corporations out to get us and stuff like that. And you guys know a lot of people who work in these corporations and stuff like that. Is this really how they think, or?
Well, I think it's a combination, right? I mean, there's obviously some level of greed, in a capitalistic society.
Yep.
But I think a big part of it, if corporations keep raising the price, is also because of the increasing costs, things like that, because everyone has a bottom line to look after, right, in corporations. So it's really both, right, into effect, right? That's why we see rising prices. It's not just purely greed alone, because greed alone then, some other competitor will just slash down the price, they get more market share.
Because that's a different version of greed, lah. I want to capture more market share, so I throw my price, lah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, inflation is a key driver for a lot of these things, right?
Yeah.
A lot of employees are also demanding a pay raise. Job markets have shifted, so corporations, in order to pay higher, they have to just mark up whatever they sell, the goods, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hollywood, we're kind of entrenched that all business people are greedy, right? But I think we have to understand that as greedy as you want to be, all entrepreneurs are still, right, at the mercy of market forces. It's always about supply and demand. I mean, if McDonald's wanted to charge $100 a burger, how much demand would that be? Will they spur on more competition, like what Weiqi says, right? So it's a very competitive market. We're quite free market in that sense, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you talk about greed, if say you're a monopoly, yeah, that extraordinary profit, right? But I think if you're in food business, which is very highly competitive, every corner there's someone selling food, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that greed factor really kicks in.
Yeah, I mean, basically, greed is a natural kind of process for any company because the objective of a company is to make money, right?
Yeah.
But no company operates in a vacuum.
Correct.
And because of that, greed always has its limits in terms of competition. Competition is like the natural market force to counter greed.
Yeah.
The invisible hand,
Yeah,
Adam Smith, right?
right.
Yeah.
I'll have to Google that later. I know Adam Smith, but I didn't know about the invisible hand. But yeah, I'll Google it later. No worries. Okay, so thank you so much. Do you want to close it off?
Yeah, thanks everyone. Wei Chi, thank you very much
My
for
pleasure.
being on our podcast. Of course, Chuck,
Thank
for
you.
asking
Thanks for coming.
everyday questions.
Yeah.
Till the next one, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.